Yeah. So the album Bone Collector. So any kind of concept behind the title of the record. I mean, it's got your typical cover. You got a Grim Reaper looking dude on there, some skulls. I don't think a Gravedigger album cover would look the same if you didn't have skulls and Grim Reapers and everything else in the front. So is there any like actual concept behind the title? Was there a reason you titled the album Bone Collector?
Yeah, there's a really small concept behind that because we have the Reaper album, we have the Return of the Reaper album, and
Yeah,
don't want to call the new album The Reaper is out of the coffin or something like that, you know? So that was the reason why would be looking for a synonym for the Reaper, and then we found it Bone Collector. That sounds more brutal than the Reaper, and I love that.
yeah,
No, it's not a concept CD. It's we have some different topics on it. Like Killing is My Pleasure. It's about a guy called Robert Kuklinski. He was a mafia killer in the US. He killed
yep.
more than 200 people, and he went out to kill from like a 9 to 5 job. And we have the rich, the poor, the dying is some critical stuff about people. A very small percentage in the world has so much money, and 80% of the people don't have any money, and there's a lot of poorness and everything. So, but we have
That's
also this typical gravedigger lyrics like Kingdom of Skulls or Bone Collector. I love this Bone Collector chorus because he's a bone collector, grave dictator, death protector, and bone collector. That is more cliche you can't have on an album, you know.
yeah. Yeah, and again, those the first two songs in the album, which you just talked about, uh, those are two of my favorite tracks on the album. I think that what Tobias played on this record to me is it just you never know what you're going to expect when you get a new guitar player. I mean, it's one of those things. When I started listening to the riffs and the actual songs and how heavy they were and how straightforward they were, it was great. It actually reminded me of your old days. It reminded me of the Reaper album a little bit, when that album came out. And the songs, I'm not saying they sound the same, but obviously the production's a lot better. But yeah, it was more. You didn't do all these big epic, intros and things that you've done on these concept albums. You just went straight back to the old days, and then
Yeah,
yeah,
that was our intention to do that, no? And to make it simple again, because people, I want to at the end, I want to entertain people, you know.
yeah,
And we are not a social criticism band like System of a Down or this guys, you know. We want to entertain like Judas Priest or Saxon, making good songs, faster songs, slower songs, mid tempo, but always in a simple way, like you expect from a German heavy metal band. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. The other song probably gets overlooked because it's the last song in the album, "Whispers of the Damned." it's,
Yeah, that
it's,
is
it's
a
also a
more or
good one.
less. Yeah, it's not an epic song, but
No,
I think that the lyrics are really, yeah, brutal, because it's about the commander of the concentration camp Auschwitz.
yeah,
That he also, like Robert Kuklinski, the mafia killer, he's working like a 9 to 5 job, sending people to the gas chamber, killing millions of Jews and other people, and then going back home, sitting there with his family, having dinner in the evening. Oh, what you
yeah.
done?
Like it's nothing. Like he just didn't like nothing happened. Yeah,
Yeah, and the wife said, "Oh, what you did the whole day at your work? Oh, I put some people in the gas chamber, killed them. Okay, good, nice, nice." So it's weird, and I love this song because the lyrics are so authentic, and I like also the song structure because I'm a great fan of Ozzy Osbourne and his second solo album, Diary of a Madman, and we take this a little bit as a tribute to this song. You know, when I talked to Toby, hey, let's write a song like this, you know,
mm-hmm.
and then we came up with this song, and I think, yeah, it's amazing.
That's actually my favorite Ozzy album.
Yeah,
I just I
mine
just did a
too.
I just did an episode on that album. Yeah, it's my favorite Ozzy album, and it's interesting because it was so different from Blizzard of Oz. It really was, But yeah, I noticed a lot of the lyrics. I mean, there's a lot of very dark topics in this album, and what inspired you to write about? There aren't obviously not every one of them. It's not a concept record, but what inspired you to write about a lot of this stuff, especially a lot of this more brutal stuff that's happened, throughout history?
I have a dark soul, my friend. No, uh, I'm such a peaceful guy, but I have this fantasies. Not that I live these fantasies in my normal life, but I can put that to my lyrics. And I'm some kind of storyteller. Like uh, uh, like writing a book or something, and but in
Yeah.
a short way. And I love to deal with this kind of topics. So perhaps I'm weird. There's a song on this album also, which is a little bit autobiographic. It's Made of Madness.
Hmm.
To do this job, to do this kind of music, you must be made of madness.
Yeah.
And, something I have this part in me who is mad about this kind of lyrics.
Yeah. You've always been in a lot of the lyrics. You've always written about something in history. The kind of the brutal part of the history, like, Knights of the Cross, again, about the Crusades, right? You wrote, when you listen to some, I was listening to Heart of Darkness not long ago, and I'm listening to some of these other albums, and really, there's a lot of history that you write about, and more of the brutal side of things. But I've always had that. That's always been what you've done, right? And I'm listening to the lyrics of this album, and I'm like, man, Chris is, I'm thinking to myself, this is about some guy getting killed, but I can't figure out what inspired it until you just told me. But yeah, I mean, it's always been a trademark of yours with that. And I did definitely get a lot of that vibe from the album itself. Graveyard Kings, another great song. I was thinking about that just now. But overall, I think that you did I think this album's much better than the last one.
Okay, thank you.
In all
But
honesty.
but look to the other side. If you have a band like Halloween or like Freedom Call, they have this lucky side of life. This da, 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 da,
Yeah.
da. And we are feeding the people the darker side of life.
Hmm.
And I think that this kind of topics from Freedom Call would not fit to the kind of music that Gravedigger is playing.
Hmm.
So I think always I'm looking always at the lyrics fits to the kind of music we play. And perhaps we're playing a little bit darker kind of heavy metal, not death metal or something, but the darker side of heavy metal. And I
Yeah.
think that's the reason why Gravedigger sounds this way. But
I
anyway, it's a
yeah.
signature sound.
Yeah, it's interesting because I think the closest band I can think of that does write about some more brutal stuff would be Rage.
Yeah,
Because I remember PB telling me once about some of the stuff that he was writing about on one of the records they did, and I just remember it's kind of some similar topics, right? Because Running Wild's doing, they're writing about pirates and all sorts
yeah,
of other things and stuff like that. But yeah, I've noticed the creators writing about kind of probably similar stuff that you guys do, right? And it even though it's thrash, it's some similar topics there. So yeah, I mean, I think that the uniqueness of the band has always been your vocals, because you don't, like, if I listen to an album and you're on it, I already know it's going to be you, right? But I think your vocals, choirs, the songwriting style, you are correct when you said earlier, hey, you know what, we have our own signature sound, and I think that is what's part of what's kept this band alive for quite a long time.
for sure. Well, you know who is a bone collector? Peavy is a bone
Well, I know
collector.
he is. I was just about to mention it. He is that. He did tell me that years ago. But yeah, that's why I brought that up, because he writes about a lot of the similar stuff. So I got to go into one other thing. 45th anniversary. Do you have any special celebrations planned? Do you have anything special planned for next year to
Yeah, we play the
celebrate
Wacken
that?
Open Air. The Wacken Open Air. We have some old school sets we will play with older stuff. Now on tour, we play a good amount of classics and a good amount of new stuff. But we also take one song on the next tour we never played live, I think 25 years or something. It is The Keeper of the Holy Grail.
Oh wow. Okay.
Yeah, and that will be fun because we always play The Curse of Jack, which is it's a great. We modified it a bit to sing with the people, and it's such a great song live. But anyway, we play also the Kingdom of Skulls. We will start the show with Kingdom of Skulls with Jens Becker on stage playing his bass guitar. And yeah, well, I'm really happy to look in the future. We have so many great plans also after the anniversary year next year. So coming up with a new album. And yeah, we never stop thinking and playing.
So you're pretty optimistic. You're going to make it to 50 years.
I hope so, for
Yeah,
sure.
Judas Priest did it, right? I mean, they just
Yeah.
reissued. They reissued their first album, the 50th anniversary of Rock'n'Rolla. So I figured, if all of the people you grew up listening to can make it 50 years, I mean, why not you, right? I mean, it's
Yeah,
kind of
it's not such a long time. 5 years is such.
no. I
It's
mean,
flying by. Time is flying by every time. If you have children, I think you have a son too, yeah?
I have two kids. Yeah,
Two kids. Two kids. If you after the birth of your kids, time's flying by. Whoop, 18
yeah,
years, 20 years, like nothing.
yeah. Yeah, because I remember it has flown by because I will never forget when I read the press release of you celebrating your 20th anniversary back in 2000,
Yeah.
and it feels like that was yesterday. But then I realized it's going to be 25 years since that happened. So it's
Yeah.
pretty. And then I'm looking at the amount of albums you've put out since then. I mean, it's been crazy. I mean, it's interesting because I was just talking about this a couple days ago. Where I was talking about the late 90s is when there was kind of like a resurgence of this music. And I remember that's when Knights of the Cross came out, right? That's when Blind Guardian had Nightfall Middle Earth, right? You just had a lot of these albums that hadn't really made it over here yet, but you could see this resurgence, right? Hammerfall, their first album, and it out of nowhere did really well for them. And you guys were part of that, I think. And that's kind of when I ended up really that late 90s, mid to late 90s is when I ended up getting into the band.
For sure, it was a great time. We released in the 90s two of the most successful records ever, like To the War and Excalibur. No?
Mm-hmm.
But I'm not a guy who's looking back. I'm
Yeah.
looking to the future. I want to reach some more goals with the band, and I want to keep this lineup stable. So yeah,
I
think we have a couple of more years in records.
Yeah, speaking of that, I was just thinking about this the other day. When Excalibur came out, I remember before the album came out, you had back in the early days of the internet, I remember people got to vote on the concept. Remember there was like, I think Knights of the Round Table, yeah, two other concepts that people could vote for that you guys would write about. And
Yeah,
if you do another concept album again, do you think of, hey, maybe we'll think of a few things and maybe let the fans vote on it and see what kind I can do any of these, but let's see what they would like us to write about. Have you ever thought about doing that again?
no, not in the moment. I think that also the next one won't be a concept CD. I love to write these lyrics I did in the moment. So like on Bone Collector, I'm so addicted
Yeah.
to this part of lyrics. So I don't think that we write a concept. The next one will be not a concept, definitely not.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So speaking of some history going on, you talked about the 80s and doing this. It was a much different time for the band. And I always said that there's a big difference between the material you came out with in the 80s And then when, the band was kind of, I mean, you did that like Digger project at one point, and then the 93, early 90s, the Reaper, Symphony, Symphony of Death, those, that EP and an album come out. Um, what was it difficult for you to kind of restart the band at that point? Because I know the 80s were a rough time with with Noise Records and everything that had gone on with a lot of bands that were on that label at the time. But was it difficult to kind of come back and come out with those first couple records in the 90s? Because I know you went through probably some crazy times back then
No, I don't think so, because we had this break after the Dig album,
Mhm.
and during this time, during the release of the Dig album and the album The Reaper was more or less 6 years, I think, something like that.
Sure.
And at the end, we had this Hawaii project, which was Gravedigger, but with another name. But we did some shows at this time. I think it wasn't a good time for a band like Gravedigger, but then Gun Records discovered the band again, and we did the Reap album, which came out with a bang. And I think since this time, the band has always delivered quality albums, different albums,
Mhm.
and I think that we have the status now that is more or less, sometimes a little bit less, sometimes a little bit more, but we have the status. We can play around the world. We can make records. I think that is the most important thing, and that is the thing keeps us alive and moves us forward.
Absolutely. Well, hey, look, man, I commend you. It's funny because I listen to usually the band's past discography before I go and listen to the new record, or at least after I listen to the new record, I'll go back and listen to some of the past albums. But you're right, I was revisiting albums that I forgot about. Like I forgot about The Last Supper, for example. I probably hadn't listened to that in quite a long time. But you are correct. I mean, the albums are very consistent and they are a lot different. The only thing that's similar, I would say, would be just the album covers having skulls and a Grim Reaper or something like that. But I don't think the albums it wouldn't be Gravedigger if it didn't have a cover like that. That's just me.
For sure, the mascot, the Reaper, must be on the cover.
But anyhow, I do appreciate your time. I definitely love this record. It definitely is. It is a very, very good album. I would probably say in January 17th, I believe it comes out.
Yeah.
Next year. So I think it's a great start to the year. It really is. And I really think you found a great guitar player in Tobias with the music that you've really written on this. But you've always had the one talent I think you've always had is you've always known the right guys to bring into the band. I think that's so important from the creative aspect. And obviously, it's not like these guys are in the band for a day, right? But you always find the right people musically to bring in. And I think that's one of the things I think you've done extremely well, over the course of this band's existence.
Thank you very much.
So my last question, Chris, any last words for the fans out there who are going to be checking out this interview?
Believe in heavy metal and stay metal and live metal, because that's our life, my friend.
Well, hey, it was great having you on, as always, and definitely a great album that you've done.
Thank you very much.
Hey everybody, Tony here from the Metal Command podcast. Again, I appreciate your support. Since 1998, I have hosted this show in one form or another, starting off in radio and now in the podcast format. Again, thanks for watching, and if you like what you see and hear on this show, by all means, please hit the subscribe button, hit the little bell to be notified anytime I do post a video, and if you see this program on any other form of social media, please give me a follow there. Again, I always appreciate your support.